Picture this. A kid grows up in an environment filled with violence, neglect, or abuse. This kind of traumatic experience can have a significant impact on their mental health as they grow older. Childhood trauma can lead to a range of mental health issues like depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and even personality disorders. There are several forms of childhood trauma that can have a lasting impact on a person's psyche. Here are some of the most common ones. 1. Physical abuse. Physical abuse involves the intentional use of physical force that results in harm to a child's body. It can include hitting, punching, kicking, burning, or any other form of physical harm. This form of trauma can lead to physical injuries as well as long-term emotional and psychological consequences. 2. Emotional abuse. Emotional abuse involves the persistent emotional mistreatment of a child, which can include constant criticism, humiliation, rejection, or belittlement. It can also involve withholding love, affection, or emotional support. Emotional abuse can have a profound impact on a child's self-esteem, self-worth, and overall emotional well-being. 3. Neglect. Neglect occurs when a child's basic needs for food, shelter, clothing, medical care, or emotional support are not met by their caregivers. It can be both physical and emotional neglect. Chronic neglect can result in feelings of abandonment, low self-esteem, and difficulties with trust and attachment. 4. Witnessing domestic violence. Growing up in a household where there is domestic violence can be traumatic for a child, even if they are not direct victims of the violence. Witnessing violence between caregivers can lead to feelings of fear, helplessness, and a distorted understanding of healthy relationships. 5. Parental substance abuse. Living with a parent or caregiver who struggles with substance abuse can expose a child to instability, neglect, and emotional trauma. It can also increase the risk of experiencing other forms of abuse or violence within the household. These forms of childhood trauma can have a profound and lasting impact on a person's psyche. They can affect the development of the brain, disrupt emotional regulation, and shape one's beliefs about themselves and the world. Now, how does this relate to criminality? Well, here's the thing. When a person experiences trauma during their childhood, it can affect their brain development and coping mechanisms. They might struggle with regulating emotions, making rational decisions, and controlling impulsive behaviour. As a result, they may be more prone to engaging in criminal activities as a way to cope with their internal struggles or to gain a sense of control in their lives. The link between childhood trauma and domestic violence is a significant area of research that highlights the impact of early traumatic experiences on later behaviour and relationships. Studies have shown that individuals who have been exposed to violence during their childhood, such as witnessing domestic violence between their caregivers, are more likely to become either victims or perpetrators of domestic violence in adulthood. Childhood trauma can shape an individual's beliefs about relationships and influence their behaviour in various ways. Here are a few factors that contribute to this connection. 1. Learned behaviour. Children who grow up in an environment where domestic violence is prevalent may learn that violence is a normal or acceptable way to resolve conflicts. They may internalize the belief that aggression and control are necessary components of relationships, leading to a higher likelihood of engaging in abusive behaviors later in life. 2. Emotional regulation. Childhood trauma can disrupt the development of healthy emotional regulation skills. Individuals who have experienced trauma may struggle to manage their emotions effectively, leading to difficulties in resolving conflicts in non-violent ways. This can contribute to the cycle of violence within relationships. 3. Power and control dynamics. Childhood trauma can shape an individual's perception of power and control within relationships. They may have learned that exerting power and control over others is a way to protect themselves or maintain a sense of safety. This distorted understanding of power dynamics can contribute to the perpetration of domestic violence. 4. Intergenerational transmission. The link between childhood trauma and domestic violence can also be attributed to intergenerational transmission, where patterns of abuse are passed down from one generation to the next. Individuals who have experienced trauma in their own childhoods may unknowingly replicate similar patterns of behaviour in their adult relationships. It is important to note that not all individuals who have experienced childhood trauma will become involved in domestic violence. However, the research suggests that there is a higher risk for individuals with a history of trauma. Understanding this link can help inform prevention and intervention efforts, focusing on breaking the cycle of violence through early identification, trauma-informed care, and therapeutic interventions to address the underlying trauma and promote healthy relationship dynamics. Now, let's talk about the impact on society. When individuals who have experienced childhood trauma engage in criminal activities, it affects the community at large. It can lead to increased crime rates, strained relationships within families and communities, and a general feeling of insecurity. Moreover, the cost of addressing the consequences of childhood trauma, such as providing mental health services and supporting victims, can put a strain on resources within society. But it's not all doom and gloom. Understanding the psychology of childhood trauma and its impact on mental health and criminality can help us develop preventive measures and interventions. So let's keep the conversation going and work towards creating a society that supports those who have experienced childhood trauma, because everyone deserves a chance at healing and growth.